What do you think a smart person looks like? Quick talker, fast reactions, always has an answer? Or that obvious genius type you can spot right away? Wrong. People with very high IQs rarely look the way you expect. They're not loud. They don't rush to show off. In fact, you may have already met them, or you might be one of them without even realizing it. Why? Because real intelligence isn't about how much you know, it's about how you process the world. It hides in very small details, in reactions that, from the outside, seem completely ordinary. But on the inside, it's a totally different system. In today's video, we're going to break down 10 habits, subtle signs of an exceptional mind, and especially the last one, the thing every genius has, but 99% of us miss. Let's get started. The first habit is that they often talk to themselves. It may sound strange, and from a social point of view, mumbling to yourself is often seen as odd or lacking control. But in cognitive psychology, this is not a sign of instability. It's actually a tool to optimize thinking. When you see someone speaking out the steps to solve a complex problem or quietly talking while processing information, they're using a support mechanism for the brain. A well-known study from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the University of Pennsylvania found that putting thoughts into words, self-directed speech, helps people focus better on the task at hand. This works by activating working memory through the auditory channel, making abstract ideas easier to visualize. Imagine the brain of a high IQ person as a supercomputer running dozens of thought processes at the same time. Pure thinking inside the mind can sometimes create a kind of traffic jam between ideas. By speaking out loud, they force the brain to turn that messy flow into a clear, linear, and logical structure. Researchers call this process externalized thinking. It not only improves memory, but also acts like a filter, helping them quickly spot gaps in their own reasoning. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman is a perfect example. He developed the Feynman technique, where explaining complex ideas out loud to himself was the key to truly understanding them. For him, speaking out loud was a way to test the sharpness of his thinking. So instead of being a sign of odd behavior, talking to yourself often shows that your cognitive system is actively organizing itself to reach a higher level of precision. The second habit is that they tend to overthink. In everyday life, thinking too much is often seen as a psychological burden, linked to anxiety. People usually say, don't overcomplicate things. But for someone with a high IQ, stopping thinking can actually be a real challenge on a biological level. The difference lies in something neuroscientists call metacognition, the ability to monitor and adjust your own thinking process. A high IQ brain usually has a very active and highly connected prefrontal cortex. Because of this, they're not satisfied with surface-level answers. When facing a decision, they don't just see option A or B, they see a whole network of cause and effect behind it. They replay conversations, analyze tone, and search for patterns that others often miss. But this is not a perfect superpower. It comes with a trade-off. Research in behavioral psychology shows that this tendency uses more mental energy and can sometimes lead to analysis paralysis. They might take 10 seconds of silence just to answer a simple question, because in those 10 seconds, their brain has already run through thousands of possible risks. So if you see someone lost in thought, understand this. They're not just worrying. They're running a full simulation in their mind to find the best possible outcome. The third habit is that they often get bored quickly. A high IQ person may start a new project with intense focus, learning the rules faster than almost anyone else. But once they reach mastery, they often lose interest or feel mentally drained. This is often misunderstood as a lack of discipline or laziness. In reality, this is closely tied to the brain's reward system, especially how dopamine responds to intellectual challenges. For the average person, stable and repetitive tasks can feel safe and satisfying. But for those with more complex cognitive systems, their brain often has a higher stimulation threshold. Once a task is figured out, it no longer demands deep thinking, and the brain reduces its response to rewards. Researchers at the University of Toronto suggest that high IQ individuals often crave cognitive novelty. They're not lazy, they're just uninterested in things that don't provide new information. That feeling of boredom is like a biological signal that the brain is being underfed. Without harder problems or more complex environments, they may disconnect from reality to conserve energy. That's why many highly intelligent people have unstable career paths or frequently switch fields. They're not chasing money or status, they're chasing the feeling of solving new mysteries. The fourth habit is that they often question their own abilities. Here's a fascinating paradox. The least capable people are often the most confident, while the most intelligent minds tend to live with constant doubt. This isn't just a feeling. It's supported by the well-known Dunning-Kruger effect. High IQ individuals can see the bigger picture of knowledge. The more they know, the more they realize how vast the unknown really is. Their intelligence acts like a sharp lens, but instead of focusing only on achievements, it often highlights the gaps in their own reasoning. They understand how complex the world is and how fragile theories can be, which makes them cautious about making strong claims. Imposter syndrome often appears in this group not because they lack ability, but because they set extremely high standards for intellectual perfection. What they achieve feels normal to them because their brain processes it so quickly, and they assume others can do the same. So what about you? Do you often question your own abilities? If yes, you can relax a little. That doubt is usually not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're aware enough to see the true scale of knowledge. The fifth habit is that they tend to be more active at night. Traditional thinking often praises early rising as a sign of discipline, but research in evolutionary psychology offers a different view of highly intelligent night owls. A study by Satoshi Kanazawa at the London School of Economics found a statistical link between higher IQ and going to bed later. The explanation lies in the idea of evolutionary novelty. Our ancestors were programmed to wake with the sun to survive. Choosing to stay up late to think or work goes against that original instinct and requires a higher level of cognitive adaptation. Nighttime also creates a quieter social environment. For a brain that is already highly sensitive to stimulation, the night is often the only time when the cortex can truly wander freely. This is when the subconscious starts connecting scattered ideas. Highly intelligent people don't stay up late to watch meaningless TV. They stay up because it's the only time their brain feels safe and quiet enough to operate at full capacity. While this habit can affect physical health, psychologically, it's how they create a private space for deep thinking. The sixth habit is that they are extremely sensitive to ambient noise. Have you ever felt irritated by the ticking of a clock, someone typing nonstop, or the sound of someone chewing nearby while everyone else seems completely fine? For people with high IQ, this isn't about being picky. It's a specific neurological trait. Scientists at Northwestern University studied something called leaky sensory gating. Normally, the brain has a filtering system that blocks out unimportant sensory information. But in many highly intelligent and creative individuals, this filter is less strict. They can't ignore surrounding stimuli. Their brain takes everything in. While this can lead to fatigue and sensory overload, it also brings an advantage: the ability to notice details others miss. This sensitivity helps them detect errors or new patterns in data much faster. So instead of seeing noise sensitivity as a weakness, psychologists consider it the cost of having a highly responsive information processing system. They're not difficult. They just have a receiver that's too powerful in a world that's too noisy. The seventh habit is that they often use active procrastination. Procrastination is usually seen as the enemy of productivity. But for highly intelligent people, it can mean something very different. Researchers at the University of Calgary have pointed out a key difference between passive procrastination caused by laziness and active procrastination. Take Leonardo da Vinci as an example. He spent about 16 years finishing the Mona Lisa because he kept getting drawn into optical research along the way. His delay wasn't laziness, it was incubation, turning a simple portrait into a timeless masterpiece. Highly intelligent people often wait until the last minute to fully act. Why? First, their brain needs time pressure to trigger enough adrenaline to enter a flow state. Second, and more importantly, is the incubation effect. Even when they seem to be doing unproductive things like gaming or walking around, their subconscious is still processing information. They're waiting for the idea to fully cook before taking action. That said, this is not an ideal method for everyone. It puts the nervous system under intense pressure. But for many high IQ individuals, they accept that stress in exchange for breakthrough results that steady work might not produce. They're not delaying the work. They're delaying execution until the solution is already 90% complete in their mind. The eighth habit is that they have a selective memory and can be quite forgetful. Many geniuses can remember thousands of digits of pi, but can't remember where they put their keys. This contradiction may seem funny to others, but it reflects a ruthless optimization by the brain. Neuroscience research on working memory shows that the brain has limited processing capacity. To maintain high-level thinking, the brains of highly intelligent people often prioritize information automatically. Everyday details that are repetitive and not analytically useful, like where you left something or a shopping list, are treated as low-value data and quickly discarded. On the other hand, they remember very well information that is structured, logical, or connected to what they already know. They don't forget because their brain is weak. They forget because their brain is reserving space for more important structures. It's a resource management system that helps them focus on what truly matters instead of getting buried in small details. The ninth habit is that they feel emotions deeply and intensely. There's a common stereotype that highly intelligent people are cold and lack empathy. In reality, many studies in clinical psychology suggest the opposite. Kazimierz Dąbrowski's theory of overexcitabilities shows that individuals with high intellectual potential often respond more strongly to emotional stimuli. Their nervous system is more sensitive, which means they don't just think deeply. They feel deeply too. A sad story, a piece of art, or a social injustice can affect them much more strongly than it would others. Their ability to analyze deeply also allows them to detect pain or dishonesty in others with just a glance, which can sometimes make them withdraw to protect themselves from emotional overload. This is both a burden and a gift. It allows them to understand humanity on a more subtle level. Intellectual intelligence and emotional sensitivity are not separate lines. They often blend together, creating people with incredibly rich and complex inner worlds. The 10th habit and the most important sign is that they have endless curiosity. If there's one thing that truly defines intelligence, it's not IQ. It's the level of curiosity. In psychology, this trait is called need for cognition. People with high IQ rarely feel satisfied with simple answers. They always want to know the why behind the why. This curiosity is like a never-ending engine. It drives them to read books unrelated to their work, explore completely new fields, and question beliefs that have existed for centuries. Albert Einstein once said, "I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious." Of course, that's a humble way of putting it, but it reveals an important truth. Talent without curiosity quickly fades. A truly intelligent mind never sees itself as someone who knows everything. Instead, they keep the wonder of a child when facing the vastness of the universe. For them, knowledge is not a destination. It's a journey with no end. So if you've stayed here, listening all the way to this moment, exploring the corners of the mind with me, that itself is clear proof of your intelligence. Because only minds that truly crave understanding have the patience to ask the question, who am I really? So what's the key takeaway? Real intelligence is not about numbers on a test or technical IQ scores. It's about depth of awareness, the ability to tolerate uncertainty, and a curiosity that never fades. Having a powerful mind is sometimes like carrying an overly sensitive sensor in a world full of noise. It brings incredible advantages, but also burdens that not everyone can understand. So the next time you find yourself being too sensitive, too hesitant, or feeling like you're on a different frequency from everyone else, just smile, because that might be a sign that you carry one of nature's most valuable gifts. So which of these habits do you see in yourself? Share your story in the comments below. You might just find people who are on the same wavelength as you. And if today's story felt like it was reading your mind, hit the subscribe button and share this video with a friend who you think needs to feel understood too. Click on the video on your screen right now to continue the journey of understanding yourself and becoming smarter every day. I'm Apex. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.